coins as well. So, because of this, there's this really interesting gap of trying to understand, is the market accelerating as an aggregate, or is the market actually accelerating on every each vertical? And we look at the aggregate, yes, there's a lot of money that came, from the sidelines to get locked up in protocols. But this is kind of what you're starting to recognize, is that more people are more comfortable with safer bets. And a lot of the safer bets at the moment right now are protocols or potential token farming, right? In this market, which is just showing this market's getting more intelligent, but that also becomes a little bit of a red flag of, where does NFT liquidity come from? And how do we see ETH NFT projects move successfully? And right now, we're pinning our hopes on the entire ETH market on tokens. So right now, the primary conversation for traders and long-term collectors are, which NFT assets on ETH you're acquiring to hold until TGE, right? Which ones are the ones worth doing so? Some also have additional strategies which are worth holding and selling before TGE if they don't have conviction on the actual event. But what's crazy is that these processes are much longer than people recognize, right? And what I mean by that is that what you're seeing here at the moment right now is that, as you kind of scale this vision, the question that you want to beg is, do we actually see ETH liquidity coming back when any of these positive events happen? So the likelihood on the protocol side is low, right? There's not a lot of stuff. Like, I wouldn't expect a large percentage of capital locked up in Manta to come back into ETH NFTs. Maybe the one that you might be bullish on is Blur Blast, right? Mainly because there's a strong correlation of degen traders. But again, if you're looking at how this market has traditionally worked, we would only see a fraction of that return coming back into NFTs as well. So we're now all in this kind of 60-day waiting game period that started essentially in mid December, right? We essentially waited for grapes to kind of come out. Grapes didn't sustain as well as many people would have liked, but it was still very profitable, right? Especially if you were, someone who was there from start. But this is kind of the other challenge, though, is that it wasn't a home run. It did not sustain its 10x, right? It did not really have the ability to hold the token price up. And this becomes the challenge now, is that ETH tokens are always going to be based on, how did the previous two tokens do well? And what's crazy about the ETH token market is that you can argue the ETH token market is really only being held up by one project, right? And that's Memeland. Memeland's the only one that continues to make sustainable, growth or sustainable flat value of their token, which is a massive, massive feat. It really is. It's an incredibly massive feat on where they are and where they sustain, and they still haven't delivered product utility, which is a huge advantage for them. But now the market is switching over to, how will Overworld do? And Overworld's probably the most hype ETH one, mainly for two reasons. One, it is very much going to get Binance listing. And the reason why people are bullish on that is that the last three or four projects with Binance listing got to FTV values between $1 and $2 billion, right? Last three or four gaming tokens or gaming involved tokens on Binance went through huge, huge opportunities there as well. So you really want to take a very good opportunity to kind of recognize how Overworld is going to kind of sustain, and whether or not they can push through without a game, right? Without content, all these kind of other elements that are going to come as a part of this kind of journey. And this is also really important to recognize, because the sustainability of the token market is really, at least on the ETH side, going to rest on a lot of the shoulders of not only Overworld, but Exterio in general, right? And I think that's kind of the other important thing here, is that, what you're seeing is that it's now also a rush for extraction. And that's what these tokens are super exciting for a lot of the venture back guys, because they could see themselves being able to raise more capital, right? And moreover, right, it allows them to take it in a non-dilutive way for their equity round as well. So this is still something that I think you're going to expect the market to kind of sustain and build, but at the same time, it means that we're in a freezing point. So I think you want to really recognize that ETH market is showcasing some secondary signs of value. But on the NFT side, it's actually underperforming quite a bit. Some of the examples of why you could see also underperforming here at the moment right now is that you could also see kind of elements like Azuki. Even with kind of a cosign tweet about a token, Azuki's floor has kind of stayed relatively stable. It did pump 20-30% initially, but it gave that all back within about 7 to 10 days. And it's kind of back to its resting price here. That was prior to the announcement of a token, which is kind of crazy, right? Is that what you are seeing in this market is that very few people know how to price tokens correctly here, because token no longer matters on its own, right? And this is now the next game of ETH. It's token plus more, right? And it's going to be token plus active game, token plus tier one listing partner like Binance, token plus huge venture capital round from gaming companies. These are now going to be required for all of the elements in ETH, because token was not enough. Token was enough in November and December. Lord knows how many of these projects were claiming some element of a token. But this is also the other important thing. Not all tokens are designed equally. Not all tokens will have the same liquidity. Not all tokens will be structured correctly. So this is how you guys want to now be thinking, is as you consider your ETH opportunity, and you may want to participate in other tokens here as well, right? Your big challenge should be is figuring out which of these tokens are best set up for success, right? Which of these tokens have the most leverage to be able to have a large liquidity event. But also, the question you should be asking yourself, which is so critical, is what is the actual vesting and lockup agreements for these assets? What does the unlock of these tokens actually look like? Because now, as you move into this token game meta, you have to figure out which round are you getting in. Are you getting in the key opinion leader, like the KOL round? Are you getting into the venture round? Are you getting into the 2x round where you don't have any liquidity at TGE, right? There's all these other elements that are going to be a real large challenge in this market. And in this market, what you're also going to recognize really quickly is that generally that all these majority of these token companies are going to really be struggling, right? They all are going to be kind of end up being tier 2 and tier 3 guys, while realistically only the couple of the tier 1s will kind of push through. And if you look at a lot of the long-term builders in this market and the long-term collectors and traders in this market, the bet right now on the ETH side is very much going more towards Overworld recently, as they've kind of made some smart announcements, including unlocking at TGE. The only claim at TGE is going to be Incarna holders, which means that they're putting large buy pressure on their NFT. And that's what you want to see from tier one ETH projects. ETH projects who understand that token liquidity is an access point, but the NFT must be able to unlock that. So you want to drive buying pressure back to the NFT in order to make the pre-sale as successful as possible. And this is the challenge though, right? Is very few people are actually structuring their organization accordingly for that. And this is kind of why you're seeing this market really struggling, and why I think you're going to see a lot of these tokens falter as they get to the finish line. But very clearly, some of these top tier builders are going to get a huge aggregated win. And traditionally, the best way to identify aggregated wins has been the listing partner. That's been one of the strongest correlations of success. And that's what a lot of people are betting on when it comes to Exterio and Overworld on the TGE side as well. But if we look at the other metrics around ETH, this is kind of where it also gets concerning, right? If we're looking at active wallets, right? Honestly, the numbers haven't gone up that much in the last couple of months. Sure, there's an increase by 10%, right? Or 15%, but it doesn't really correlate, right? Like anywhere close to the actual opportunity in this market, right? And this is also going to be the larger challenge now is that there's going to be a lot of projects that are going to try running this token meta. It's not going to be sustainable. Then the question is going to beg is, how do they pivot? And a lot of these people are going to be really struggling on that scenario to pivot. So when you see this ETH market and you're not seeing new users, you're not seeing new capital, really what it is, it's it's a musical chair game of where liquidity is going. And that means that there's going to be clearly plenty of opportunities. But what many of valuable traders are starting to recognize is NFTs are probably one of the one of the less exciting asset classes to participate in for varying reasons. And because of that, this is something you want to keep on your mind as you think about how do you want to capture upside in ETH, right? This is why I believe airdrops, farming, understanding all of those elements become also just as critical as NFT collecting, right? Or being able to participate in different TGEs. And I think this is kind of why, as you kind of scale this out, you realize ETH, although there may be all these bullish sentiments, ETH has kind of lost its traditional leverage of being really the only liquidity market previously before, right? And now what you are seeing is that we're willing to move wherever liquidity will follow. And because of tokens, the fact that you could launch new NFT collections anywhere, you're going to see a lot of these other areas sprout up. So a lot of the smart collector and traders are starting to realize that if I really want to do get involved in NFTs, or if I do want to get involved in highly valuable assets, ETH is probably not the only place to be looking at. And this is where you're starting to see rooms for Solana, just had an amazing 90 days, right? Solana deserves a lot of credit for what their community has gone through. Very fascinating, right? You've seen Avalanche starting to get a little bit of movement. You're starting to see some Arbitrum, Starknet. You're even seeing L3s like Xi, XAI, list on Binance and get to a 1 billion valuation here as well on their FDV. So there's a lot of elements that are actually then proving more opportunity. And this is really where it's great is that this is an opportunity to be retrained, right? There's an opportunity to then get access to a new vertical and where you're going. And I agree, White Armor. It is this multifunctionality. Traders do have to adapt, but it means that you also need to potentially start specializing. And this is probably the most important market insight that I can share at this point is that specializing in NFTs is not the right play. You want to probably specialize in something else or even a sub vertical within NFTs if you really want to have an edge, right? Because as this multifunctionality opens and all these paths come up, right, the advantage is really to the first movers who own that vertical really well. So some of my favorite collectors and degens, what are they doing? I mean, they started this 9 or 12 months ago. It's protocol farming, exactly, Hable. It is understanding how to be ready to go on kind of anything in this market and realizing that protocol farming is probably one of the most consistent ways of getting almost free capital in a lot of ways as long as you are long term, trying to truly create in season multiple wallets for those airdrops. And the reason why this is exciting on the protocol level is that protocols don't know, like literally don't know how to actually curate between real holders and non-real. They don't. All they can do is on-chain volume-based action. Of course, you want to do some smart things, and we'll share with that, right? It's like you don't want your wallet to be interacting, you don't want to be caught, for Sybil, right? Like you want to make sure that you're actually playing through the meta correctly. So that's just one area you might want to specialize. Maybe another area you want to specialize is just NFTs and token, right? Like I want to specialize on projects that are going to have high quality token events. This is kind of where most of the quote unquote Web3 gaming meta is focusing on. It's literally guys just accumulating assets that they believe will have a 5x or 10x opportunity at their TGE event. But again, you have to choose the right ones, right? And there's been a lot of strange winners. Of course, Overworld was kind of the known winner, but there were also very interesting stuff with like guys like Nexian Gems claiming their assets will give you a node. And now nodes are becoming another interesting meta, right? Own an NFT to get a node or buy a node early and stake it in order to support a protocol or a gaming network as well. What you're going to see is that the ETH market is going to start selling you more of the quote unquote technical opportunity to co-run and co-build these projects with them, and hope that the economic alignment can be there. There's still something really cool about that, but also at the same time it's starting to show you its ETH is kind of running out of tricks, right? It is running out of tricks to get this market to truly pump on really tier one stuff. And the best way I could recommend why this market is confused is that it really just comes down to Overworld, right? Overworld is one of the best examples of a market that's struggling to understand what the value is right in front of them. So Overworld's still sitting at like a 2.1 ETH floor. It's down 33% from its high of like 3.2 ETH, something like that. They announced that the only tokens being unlocked at TGE is through the NFTs. So that helped move the floor price from 1.5 up to 2 ETH in the last like 48 hours. But still, by all accounts, a lot of people would tell you that the math on Overworld is telling you it's a straight buy if you believe this token could get to 1 billion or 2 billion FDV. Technically at 1 billion FDV, you should be getting $5,000 worth of tokens per Incarna you hold for free, unlocked on day one. That is technically its mint price at its buy price at the moment right now. If you believe they could hit the upper end of 2 billion FDV, right, that should be $10,000 technically on the back of the napkin math being unlocked on day one of holding your asset. And you still have the asset alongside those tokens if you believe it could sustain that type of FDV, right? A 4 ETH floor roughly at that point. Again, those are traditionally high FDVs, right? But the last three FDVs of gaming tokens have been on Binance have been 2 billion, 1.5 billion, and 1.1 billion were the last three. So it starts getting a lot of interesting confidence. Traditionally, 1 billion would be a big ask for anything on without Binance. But with Binance, almost 1 billion becomes the floor in a lot of, right? Which is kind of intriguing. So I'm not saying that's the exact way you'd want to measure it, but the market is showing you the struggling of knowing where this is actually going to go and where the value is going to be. And when the market is a little confused like that, it's a bad sign, right? Because it means that they're conflicted on where their money and where the best place for their money should be going. And this is going to be very intriguing now is that either you're going to see massive winners on Overworld side or you're going to see massive losers. But in either scenario, it's probably not great for the ecosystem because it will become so polarizing. The what we are hoping for, of course, though, is that the token continues to sustain, right? Because you guys want the token meta to kind of last as long as you possibly can. But it's tough. It's a very tough game and a tough play. And this is kind of where this market makes it obfuscated. Because what's the worst thing about all these token sales? We still don't know the true vesting on any of this stuff. We might get little pieces, but we don't know when is the second unlock for Encarta. We don't really understand how will the multiplier work for teams and individuals and when those will get dropped. We still don't have the full pre-sale, right? Which is the other thing where for every Incarna you own, you have access to pre-sale. Should you be buying into pre-sale that has different terms with longer lockup and a cliff? And we know it has a cliff, but we don't know how long that cliff is. So it creates all these unknowns. And this is the challenge now in this market. When we're and facing all of these unknowns, right? Then the market is needs to really like settle. And that's what we're gonna see over the next 30 to 60 days on the ETH front. But don't get me wrong, I'm still very, very excited about where the market will potentially shift to. Because the reason I'm excited is no one knows, right? If everyone continues to believe that tokens are the way, you could have a very juicy year. But there's also signs that are showing on ETH that if one or two of these crack, right, you could lose the entire ETH meta for the year. And this is something you want to start thinking through on your own end, because the number one thing I'd be recommending for you is how do I get expertise on a non ETH chain, right? Non ETH L1 chain, right? This is one of the smartest hedges all of you guys should be doing, is that I would be focusing and becoming an expert on ordinals, Solana, AVAX, would be kind of like the top three I'd be looking at. But of course, you could add Arbitrum, Polygon, Cardano if you want. There's plays and opportunities in everyone like STX if you want to go way further back. There's all these other opportunities, but the truth is, if you're solely on ETH, you're playing this wrong, right? You are playing this wrong with how early you are. This is the framework you want to take forward as you look at the opportunities that the market will present. So as we kind of step back then, right? ETH has still a lot of elements it needs to figure out. ETH is still trying to prove to you it's more than just NFTs that attach a shitcoin as well. That's kind of what you're stuck with here at the moment right now. The challenge is now going to be which one of these are you going to play? But the safest play right now on ETH is protocol play, right? Go, if you had the opportunity in Blast, if you had the opportunity in Manta, whatever it may be, those traditionally have been more secure paths and where we've seen a lot more smart money go. The amount of smart money that went into Blast was quite intriguing. But it's just because they're all playing, right? The degen meta, right? And then that degen meta and hoping a 5x, 10x can also be from those tokens. It's not just the airdrop you're getting at start. It's the belief also those tokens can scale up and you could get free moon bags to a certain extent. And that's another really interesting way to play if you're willing to take some long-term positions in this market. But let's step back as we talk about ETH. The question now begs is what's happening on ordinals? And on ordinals, ordinals is seeing a lot of resurgence. It's a little bit different because the market is still maturing, but there's clearly capital that's willing to go around, and hilariously, ordinals has been working with even 10,000 collection supply, right? A market that is way less mature than ETH. We are seeing, 10K supplies coming out that I've been holding really, really good floor prices, right? It starts with early, Bitcoin frogs. I mean, you could even start earlier with Bitcoin punks. But, that's now rotated into projects like Node Monkeys as well, which has been a surprisingly good revival for the ordinal space. The good other thing that we're seeing from ordinals is small supplies are working too. If you guys remember, we gave out one of the largest allocations to Harto. Harto is now sitting at a 0.15 BTC floor, right? And if we're looking at 0.15 BTC to ETH, it's like a cool 2.5 ETH floor at the moment right now, right? Which is amazing, right? It's a really cool way of showcasing some of these new projects kind of coming in, right? And finding it. But it's not all amazing. I am right. I want to also be like very clear. right? And this is kind of like an amazing thing. Oh, nice, Bonesta. He found it in a burner wallet. Yeah, it's nice to find a cool like $5,000 $6,000 in a burner wallet for sure. Always cool to kind of see those layers, but this is kind of where Ordinals is finding its value. Ordinal is still kind of in a strange place though, mainly because some of the most OG or tier one collections have not actually minted yet. It's kind of a very interesting structure, right? What do I mean by that? Well, one of the most amazing collections in there is, of course, Taproot Wizards, and that collection hasn't actually gone out. They actually have their second collection, Quantum Cats, which they'll be talking about, I believe, later today. Definitely worth showing up to hear about the next quest for Taproot Wizards, as it ties to their Quantum Cats. But very intriguing that the Genesis collection isn't out. Another very popular ordinals collection that many people consider a grail is BTC Shrooms. And they've done a few Sotheby's auctions, and I think they've done a few private sales, but we're not really sure where things are with that, which is kind of interesting as well. So Ordinals is still trying to figure it itself out. Also, similarly, right, we had some big ETH projects come over to Ordinals, right? And this has been like OCM, right? Would probably be the best example of that. And when you look at OCM on Magic Eden, I think one of the things that's kind of really surprising here as well is they haven't really been able to bring that liquidity over as much as they would hope. So don't get me wrong, it's still doing really well. Their current floor is still 0.08 BTC, right? So if we're looking at zero point zero 0.08 BTC, we're still looking at a a roughly 1.25, 1.3 ETH floor, which is generally not too bad. But that was lower than the floor they had on ETH before they came over, right, to ordinals. They were around 2 ETH floor price, and they've kind of dropped. And they built a collection, and they've only done like total 6 BTC in volume on their 10K supply that's moved over, which is unfortunate because they haven't really been able to get the value there that a lot of them would be hoping for. But of course, we've seen a lot of the volume switch to projects like Node Monkey. That's probably the one that's been an incredibly outlier. You're currently sitting at a 0.18 BTC floor. Wow, Hardo and Node Monkey is kind of at a similar level, but you are seeing quite a few different elements and pieces finding room and finding opportunity. I think right now, when it comes to ordinals, you should be doing a medium supply or an ultra small supply. Those are really the two options that you're seeing. The challenges that we're kind of running into, and I think are kind of the biggest problems that I see with ordinal metrics, are two things. One is you're not seeing as much thoughtful utility and product experiences after these things mint. And that's kind of led to a few really disappointing outcomes. A good example of this was like Shadows. They went very aggressive here as well. And what you end up seeing here is that as you look at this meta, these guys minted out at zero point 0.2 BTC in less than 24 hours of trading. They're down over 50%, down to a 0.0945 at the moment right now. So this idea of using Dutch auctions has been the only way that the ordinals market has been able to launch some of these larger events, which I think has been a really poor showing. And that's kind of a little bit of a worry, is that are we getting too extractive here in this market? Right. And this is kind of the other challenge here as well, is that this overall market, yeah, doesn't make sense. Harto's a great example. Harto had launched on ETH, and really didn't see that volume. But being early to ordinals and building a community around that has led to something pretty meaningful, where I guess the art's connecting a little bit more, and people value kind of the storytelling that's coming behind this. And it's very surprising because it's massively outperforming everything he's done on ETH by miles. But that also shows you why being early to these chains does matter. The second problem though you are seeing with ordinals at the moment right now is that seeing that it's a lot of whale games. You're seeing very weird percentages of unique users on ordinal plays. It's very top heavy. And because it's very top heavy, right, it means that there's a lot of challenges then that really come down to understanding, okay, how well will this project actually sustain? Or are these just whales trying to take liquidity over time? And there's a lot of these whale groups that know what they're right. There's a lot of shitcoin meta as well when you're thinking about BRCs on ordinals. But really, what it's trying to let you all know is that ordinals does not have a compelling primary narrative, which is actually a really good thing for project because it does not have a compelling primary narrative of success. Lots of different projects can have an avenue for success there. And and this is kind of a great counter to ETH because ETH right now is that if you're not gaming and you're not a token, like why do you exist? Right? That's kind of the weird question that we pose to a lot of people here, right? But on ordinals, there's a lot of room for imagination, value, and new just propositions that could be exciting for the holders, right? And ordinals has a lot of room to define what rarity is. Ordinals has a lot of room to define on what product utility is. Ordinals has a lot of room for even just community design, right? There's a lot of interesting elements that are going to provide, I think, an entry point for new projects to deliver real value. The last thing that's plaguing ordinals as well is the lack of history, right? And the lack of the ability to allocate properly. And this is kind of what's been interesting though about ordinals. It feels very early like ETH because you don't know anything. You're just kind of spraying and praying whitelist across the board, hoping, right, that it's going to have a sustainable value as well as you try to get everyone to rush in and then hopefully sustain its value as well too. It's very intriguing. It's not how I traditionally would have seen the market play out, but it's actually quite compelling. But you're right, Agent Avax. I think this is the other challenge right now is these ordinal mints are not cheap. That's the thing that's also preventing. This is why a lot of people are super bullish on Node Monkeys at the start because it was supposed to be a free mint, right? And I was like, oh, it was going to change the market, huge opportunity, free mint, let's get it, right? That was kind of what a lot of the vision was, right? And I think that's still important as as we look at the market and how everything scales out. But the challenge still effectively becomes right is that if everything requires a $500 or $1,000 price point minimum entry, right? What you're gonna see here, right, is you're going to isolate a lot of people in this market and I think that's a challenge. Yeah, I agree, Baba. Like, don't get me wrong, the FUD was perfect for Node Monkeys, right? It actually created a much lower resting price, which was great, and it allowed these people to kind of really push forward, right, and scale up, right. So it kind of allowed a lot of people, right, that the upside and the vision to be a part of these projects, but it's still zero point zero 0.03 BTC is a fuck ton of money, right? It's it's $1,200, a half ETH minting price roughly, right? So this is also the challenge, right? Is that most of these projects are going to charge very large amounts of money. And I think this is also the counter narrative we need to look at as we think through Ronin, right? So, as we kind of wrap up here in the next 10 minutes, let me just give you guys some of my insights on how I think Ronin and more importantly, Oath are going to play out for our ecosystem as well. Because, that's really what we're trying to understand, right? We want to understand how do we best position our network, our vision, our whole community, right, to be able to be able to capture all of the upside as well, right, which I think is really exciting as we kind of build this all out. So, as we scale, what is the opportunity for Ronin? Well, I think the opportunity for Ronin on Ordinals is to buck the trend. Our goal is to continue with this vision of high quality art, high quality rarity design, high quality value across the board, and effectively see where and how to build a compelling community on ordinals that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, right? So our vision on Ronin is to make the fairest mint price you will ever see. And in the fairest min price structure that we're looking at fractions and fractions of what you've seen the market do, and you'll be surprised when you see the because the vision should be is great ordinals communities don't come from essentially, or great new NFT or collector digital asset communities don't come from just whales, right? They come from everything else, right? Like everything else of an aligned community that believes in the vision that's significantly greater. And I think that's actually why I'm actually excited about what we're building, because Ronin won't be extractive. All I can say is the mint price will be cheaper than the inscription cost that you get. So we're losing money on minting this, just to let you know. And we're okay with that, right? And this will be really crazy. Oh yeah, it will be way cheaper. Guys, we're not even talking about 0.01. We're talking way below this, right? And that's kind of the beauty of this, because our challenge here is to kind of fulfill what I think Ordinals truly needs, at least one of the areas it needs. It's a project that puts the community first, right? I think that's what's really compelling to us. And we're also on Ronin structuring the treasury to also favor the community as well. And I think this is also what will be fun as we think through this market, is that we're just going to deliver what we think Ordinals deserves, right? We really do believe that, right? And I think that's going to be a important thing to understand as this market kind of scales out. And that's like the big challenge here, right? Is that we really want to make sure that the community has a much larger upside and access to what we're doing. And yeah, loyal Oath members will have the ability to get Ronin. I mean, to be very honest, Burger Bucks, Guru Neo, you guys will get Ronin. Especially because it's based off your pendants from last season and the previous seasons as well. And there's going to be a lot of that. So if you've been really active like Rain, you're going to have a very good chance as well. All of you guys are going to have huge chances as well, because this is the amazing thing about what we're doing with Ronin. It's not about restricting this to be a massive small supply thing by any means. It's to make it a fair representative asset for this community. It's still going to be way smaller supply than what you see from projects like, will be way lower than Quantum Cats, way lower than Ninja Supply. All these guys are doing 10,000 supplies. That's not what you want to do. You want to be sub 5,000 realistically when you're thinking about all this stuff, in our opinion. And with Ronin, right? What is Ronin's goal? You guys are going to get a huge amount of upside in the journey, and getting a lot of access if you support. And plus, as you build relationships with community members here as well, you're going to see a huge opportunity for you guys to be a part of this. That's kind of the huge important thing of what we're building on Ronin, is that it should allow, we believe there's at least 1,000 hyper active people in this community. We want to give 1,000 people in this community here access to it, right? We really do. That's what we want to kind of be able to unlock for each and every one of you, while also being able to bring on partners along the way. And that's going to be the powerful thing as we kind of scale up, right? Is that we're really trying to ensure that all these pieces will fit. And you'll see all the numbers will come out. There's going to be Ronin is going to go through a very large launch cycle that will be the fairest launch you'll see in Web3, a fairer launch that you'll see on ordinals as well. And I think it's going to be way more. I wouldn't even guess on the supply. None of you guys know any of the numbers. You all are just saying blind numbers. No need to do that. The key here is recognizing we have our design. The structure will come, and it will be massively in favor of our community, and of course, our diamond users as well too. And I think that's actually a really, really important thing. Is that as we kind of play and build a vision for Ronin, it's recognizing Ronin's goal is to be very simple. It is to give you guys quality art, one of the highest quality, non-diluted, non-downgraded art pieces on ordinals, and do it a very fair structure here, that will create a very lower float on the mortgage, on the initial mint, and then a really cool treasury system that gives you guys upside as well too. Plus, the other really cool thing here is that we're trying to build this to make sure that there is a long tail community that serves ordinals as well. And what do we mean by that, right? Like, our belief and our challenge here should be very simple. We should be delivering you guys more great art. We should be allowing our pixel art team, which is the best in the game, to deliver more quality art. And I think this is why you're going to see these worlds become very, very compelling, very, very unique, very, very different. And that's kind of what we want, right? We want to make sure that we're able to kind of create all these layers for each and every one of you, so you do have these beautiful designs, these beautiful storytelling, and we are going to turn back the clock. If there's little alpha I can tell you here, is be ready for some events, be ready for some stories, be ready for some interactive games and journeys. For those of you who are already in the Ronin server, we will be moving right, to the Ronin server here as well, and be building that experience exclusively for the Ordinals community. We've already brought some amazing partners. We've also have some just amazing art. Oh, when you guys see this art, not just the PFP art, I'm talking about the world art. You see the world art. um, I don't know if anyone's built a depth of story as we have done for Ronin from a lore and storytelling and gamification perspective. Plus, for those of you who are honored diamonds, right, and you've been truly active, you're going to have the ability to bless people, right? You're going to have the ability to connect with people. And I think this is also going to be like a very powerful thing, is that as this market matures and as this community matures, you'll be able to bring the right people along the way with you. And again, if you had Oath and you've been active, the likelihood of you getting Rodin with continued activity is very high, right? The only people who have Oath that are less likely to get Rodin are going to be those that have not been active, and that's fine, right? And it's important, right? And again, if you've been in the top 1,000 active members in this community, your likelihood of Ronin is going to be really high, right? And I think this is kind of the other important thing as well, is that we are going to be giving you guys these different structures and opportunities to connect these assets between Ronin and Oath. And Ronin and Oath are connected in other ways, right? Which is also going to be really interesting. You're gonna just see a lot of cool ways this franchise develops. But what do we really care about, right? I care about one thing. I care about giving you guys a Genesis asset on both of these networks. That's what we're gonna optimize for. Ordinals will be first, ETH will come right after that as well. And hopefully from this, you guys are gonna see beautiful art coming, right? Beautiful storytelling coming. Like I want to leak the stuff that even Gokce and team are building right now, but I'll keep it behind because I want. But you are gonna see even like this spectacular, we call this like pristine armor as well too, right? You've already seen this stuff before, so you're gonna have animated ones. But the cool thing is like the whole world has been built, right? Like, and what I mean by that is like you're gonna have like a swordsman activity. Like, I'll show one of the swords. Even though I'll get in a little bit in trouble, right? Like you're gonna have really cool storytelling to come in, and you'll have to forge blades potentially, right? Check out this sick ass fucking dragon katana sword. Like, what the fuck is this? This thing's amazing. This is just like how talented the team is. How would you not want to be a Ronin with this thing in your back pocket? Right? How would you not want to search for the dopest characters in the world, right? This is what we're trying to build for. And I want to be able to kind of in a very compelling way for each and every one of you. So there's going to be a lot of cool things, and Ronin is just going to be storytelling, right? And Ronin's going to have its own rarity, right? Only some of the Ronin will be animated. The majority will not, right? Rarity will be animation on a few of these elements, right? Rarity will be Fire Eyes will be part of the animation here as well. Rarity will be there's different badges and then clan structures. There's just so many cool things that are going to be coming out of this, and we're excited for it. So you're going to see more of this structure up, and we're moving very fast. We have partnerships already structured. We're bringing on more and more tier one community members. We're thinking through the entire art and storytelling. If you loved Lost Realms, you're gonna love Oath. If you loved Oath, you're gonna love Ronin, right? Like this is how we're gonna build all of these stories as things kind of build and things kind of scale. And I think this is kind of why I'm really excited about this ecosystem and keeping it straightforward. We're not overthinking anything. We're just delivering you guys assets at non-extractive prices to be able to create value for our live community. And I think this is kind of a very important thing. You don't have to get Oath to get Ronin. Ronin will have its own whitelist distribution. But those of you who do have Oath and you're active, you have a significant chance about getting Ronin. Right? This was kind of the key thing that we wanted to make sure. Let's win collectively together, but there will be plenty of Ronin opportunities that will be given away in the Ronin server here as well, right? And I think this is going to be pretty cool because there's a bunch of allocation that are going, right? And I think that's going to be like another important thing, right? And I think that's going to be like a very important element here as well. Yeah, Crypto Goku, if you're listening, you wouldn't have to ask these questions. Crypto Goku asks, what if someone wins Ronin and they can't afford the mint? I promise you, if you can't afford this mint, you should not be in Web3. You should quit, right? You should absolutely quit. This is not a high price mint at all. This will be very, very cheap in your life. Like you will be confused when you see the mint price, right? Like that's literally what we want you to do. So like that's kind of the challenge. Don't worry, Kitagoku. I know you're trying to work as well too, but it's always same thing, right? I'm working here, giving you guys information. You got to be able to receive it as well. So that's kind of the other interesting thing, right? Yeah, don't get me wrong. All I'm gonna tell you is that this is under $100 USD mint. Like, if you guys really want to know the price, that's all you need to know. Like, we're not fucking selling you guys anything like this. This is not what we're doing, right? We are going to make this the best art and community on Ordinals without turning anything into extractive value for you guys, right? This is what you want to really understand about it. Yeah, it will be under $100. Guys, we are not trying to be crazy with this shit. This is kind of why I want to be like very clear. This is not extractive. This is not being built. This is less. We are taking in significantly less mint funds than it costs to put out this project. And we're okay with that because the goal of this project is quote unquote not profit. The goal of this project is to build a community that wants to sustain and scale. This is why Ronin will be a fucking amazing on Ordinals because you won't have to worry about selling your child, right? To do this. You won't. You won't have to worry about, needing to get liquidity. Like I said, if you can't afford this bit, you should not be a Web3. We are the fairest organization on all of our allocations, right? We are the fairest in regard to how we monetize our assets, right? This has always been the case. Why would we ever do it? Our goal to move to ordinals was not to ever be extracted. Even when we were talking about ordinals before, the initial mint price was always going to be zero point zero 0.01 BTC, just to let you. But we're even going crazier. We're just like, fuck it. Why even do it that high? Why wouldn't we make this the greatest opportunity for ordinal holders to be able to get access to something we think is more quality than the mint price immediately, right? And that's kind of the amazing thing of what we're building. Plus, right, we are expanding the supply a bit. So we don't need to keep this high at price, right? This is not the goal structure here. It's still smallish supply and way smaller than the rest of the market here as well. But what we're going to do, and when people see these numbers, I promise you, you'll think we're crazy. And I love it. That's what we want to do because, like we said, everything is always right to be in your guys' favor. That's always what we've been doing. And there's almost been no organization, I think, in has prioritized it in a way. And it's not just, hey, we're doing a free mint and there's nothing else that's coming. Man, when you see the structure of rewards here as well, um, for the Ronin clans, you'll realize like, oh fuck, there's like another 50% juice built into this as well. And that's what's really fun. Like that's what I'm really excited about here is that this entire system will be to honor you guys. Ronin and Oath is to honor you guys. That's it. That's what we're trying to build. That's what we're trying to scale. So I really, really, really am excited for many of you that when we do bring you over to ordinals for your first mint, right? It's not that we're ever going to be breaking your bag. That was never our goal here as well. Right. And I think that's another important thing. And then if you're diamonds, you're gonna have multipliers on this. Diamonds, you're gonna have a lot of cool on this and on Oath. And that's gonna be the other really cool thing is that we have some cool visions on how to restore more value and upside to everyone that's here. So we do appreciate you guys kind of being able to see this process, understand what we're doing and what we're thinking. I think the big thing as we step back is realizing Tribe is still just building for you guys. That's it. We're building for you guys and the artists. That's really it. That's what we're trying to deliver here at the moment right now. And at the same time, we're gonna bring on some amazing communities, parties, and partners, and we're gonna give them wins too. But here's the best part: if this is successful, our community should be the largest wins. And again, if you get Ronin and you become loyal in holding your Ronin, that will also impact your Oath opportunity as well. And that's the other cool thing is that we are connecting these worlds in a certain way to one another to ensure that we give the greatest amount of value to loyal users. That's all it is. It's very, very simple. We are going to value the loyalty here in everything we do. We've, for 99% of you, we've only asked for 20 or $40, right? And this is kind of like a very important thing is that we've always ensured that we give way, way, way more value back to all of you. And of course, our loyal artists. The artists will actually have their own upside as well. This is the way that a lot of our mints will be working. Is that we're just gonna sit on allocation alongside you, and artists will have their own um, allocation as well on both Oath and Ronin. So the cool thing is we all win together. We all have a collective win here as well. And I think like this is kind of the biggest thing here. And I want to keep scaling this opportunity to put you guys as a community in power. And you're going to see Ronin do that. Ronin will be one of the biggest community efforts and projects in this marketplace. No one will see anything like this as well. And this is also where your relics come really in hand, right? What is your opportunity to get Ronin? It's gonna be through relics. Relics are going to be the best way to get Ronin here at the moment right now. So if you've been active, you're going to see specific raffles and auctions just for different pendant categories as well. And I think that's another important thing here too is that this is why if you've been active and you've been oath or you've been active and you got quality pendants and you haven't spent your relics, you're going to have a bunch right? Of opportunities moving forward. And that's the cool thing about this whole system, right? Is that we're just going to bring loyal people along and all of the upside goes to loyalty directly, right? And I think this is kind of like a big way of us unlocking. There'll also be whitelists. There'll also be pre-sale spots. You're gonna see that stuff come up in February. We're gonna give you whatever we can. We're gonna continue to give it to you guys. That's one of the other things most people don't realize of our like all the whitelists we gave out, we gave 99%, right, of this opportunity, right? Is that this challenge is going to be like very clear and very valuable here as well. So I think that's kind of like a very important thing to understand, right? And this is kind of the challenge here as well. Prince of Persia asks, like, what happens if Rome fails? I mean, if anything fails, you keep building and you keep finding opportunity, right? There's not really an element in that conversation of saying, what if it fails? You do exactly this. No one knows any stuff. Our goal is to build something that it can't technically fail, period. Right? Based off the mint price and what we're unlocking, it can't fail. Right? The question you're really trying to ask is, what if it's a zero point zero 0.01 BTC floor, or if is it a zero point 0.5, zero point 0.1 BTC floor, right? Those are very different and then not really like healthy. Like to be very honest, I think a lot of people struggle because the way they're really asking their questions are, how do I get money? Right? That's what a lot of people are really trying to ask and understand. That's not our goal. Our goal is to deliver what we think is fair and valuable, and you let the market sustain it and build it, right? And I think that's also like another important thing here too, right? Is that the challenge always is going to be, how do you deliver something at value that meets the meta of this market? Everything can be massively unsuccessful here as well, right? And I think this is kind of the important thing as you kind of build in this market. You're going to see very different structures, very different designs, and very different value. And if you're diamond users here at the moment right now, you're going to see even more exclusive diamond raffles. And this is kind of the other interesting thing, right? Like our whole challenge now, right, is making sure that we could build better balance for our community. So you're going to see relics get balanced for you guys as well. See the opportunity for different access. We're going to be very critical on the partners that we're bringing on and the holders that are going to be part of the community. The big challenge now overall is, continue to give back, right? That's always what Tribe has done for our community, and we'll continue to do that here as well. And this is kind of where, our big challenge is going to be, because we're set up better on ordinals than we are on ETH, to be transparent. And this is kind of what a lot of people don't really recognize here is that ordinals is a better opportunity in this market than ETH, especially if you were listening to the first part of this conversation. So, again, that's what you guys want to think about. You need critical, you need to evaluate, you need to put the pressure on yourself and to understand which communities you want to align with and partner with as well. And that's what you have your choice for, your time to do so. And that's kind of the beauty about Web3. Find your teams, find your people, find your tribe, right? That's really all it comes down to. We're building a very compelling tribe. We're building something that puts you guys first. When you see all the economics and the layers that will be going in your direction, it's straight up just giving you guys a huge value here as well, for this community, right? And that's where it's going to be quite interesting because our allocation process will be quite different. Now we have history with a lot of you, both the highs and the lows of that history. It means that we could even properly curate Ronin even more, right? And Ronin will be truly aligned individuals who believe in where all of this stuff is going, right? And I think this is kind of the other interesting thing, right? Is that the challenge here over time is going to be a very long term play. It's not that Oath can't be an ordinal project, but remember, you also have to understand the limitations of ordinal. And this is kind of like the other challenge here, right? Is that most people don't understand the limitations. You would never want to take anything gamified as a project over into the ordinals ecosystem at this moment, right? Secondly, right, without the ability to do any smart contract design, right, you effectively are limiting the controls of where that vision may be. I'm not saying it's not an impossibility, but that's not the vision and goal. And remember, the vision and goal is of this entity, right? This vision and goal of this entity is give you guys a Genesis asset on both ETH and ordinals and build from there. There's a lot of individuals who participate in this. So we're really excited about that. And knowing what our effective supply is for all of these projects, we're feeling very bullish on where the opportunity can go. And we're gonna put our foot out there and we're gonna bring just the loyal people that have been aligned with us and bring us to that kind of opportunity moving forward. So hopefully if you guys are able to kind of get into that vision, you'll be able to kind of wrap up. So, guys, with that, we're gonna let you all go. We kind of just we went through about an hour and 5 minutes here as well. We already gave out the relic around 15 minutes ago, so you should already have it on your account if you've been participating here as well. We're gonna see a few more different stuff tomorrow. We're gonna open up the research lab for you guys. We're not gonna do as many live AMA as we historically have done, but what we are going to do is we're going to give you breakdowns of other projects just so you have it. This is our tertiary goal. Our goal is really trying to make sure that we prioritize everything for launch. That's what our focus is. We had a diamond roundtable, so diamonds have been updated on everything. They have a good understanding where things are going. And you're going to see Ronin kind of get into its flow. So get ready for that. And yeah, get ready for some cool art and some cool opportunities moving forward. But with that all, appreciate seeing crazy to see 300 people here on a spontaneous event. Really, 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 become an amazing community here, and we can't wait to unlock more and more value for all of you guys here too. So, guys, we'll chat soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye now.